happens in other counties. I can speak to the level of security that we provide here in West Bend and my partners in our other jurisdictions within the county. And that we take it our duty to make sure that the election is safe and efficient very, very seriously. So we have a couple of pronged approach. On election day itself, I know it's not unique to West Bend, but I know specifically what West Bend's plan is. We provide multiple walkthroughs, unobtrusive security to the polling places. We make it a point to make sure we find that balance between, it can be intimidating to have a police officer in the polling, so when we're there, we make sure that we're talking with the poll workers and the inspectors and the observers to make sure if there are any issues, we are there to address them, and just to make sure there's a perception and reality of security. I'm sure if you're local, you remember not too long ago, we did have an individual try to interrupt democracy in West Bend, and we responded very quickly, secured the area, secured the subject, nobody was hurt. We spent a tremendous amount of efforts working with our clerk and our city administrator and our entire team to make sure we'd spent as little amount of time as was reasonable, because we did have an investigation to conduct, so we could open up that poll. The thing that I was the most proud of is myself and my team spent time with the voters that had showed at that poll, talking with them, explaining to them the situation, working with them, taking steps to make sure if they couldn't stick around, we would notify them, get back, making sure that they understood that their access to the polls would not be denied. We would do what it takes to get them back in. We worked very quickly to make sure that the situation was resolved so the poll itself could be open. We certainly do have contingency plans if the poll can't be open, and we will work through those, and those are in place. But I was very proud of not just the police department's response, but our full team, the poll workers, the librarians, the staff, that really resolved that very quickly to make sure democracy was not interrupted that day. I'm very proud of that. So we'll continue with that, making sure that there's a strong presence, but also being respectful of the fact that we could be an intimidating factor, so we'll find that balance as well. We've talked many times about the allegations of fraud. That's not taken lightly at all in the city of West Bend or any of our municipalities or the county law enforcement. Our Criminal Investigation Bureau is staffed throughout the election. Anything that is of any concern, and I've always been proud of our partnership with our clerk's office, is brought immediately to us and immediately investigated and aggressively investigated until it's either resolved or charges sought through the district attorney. And we will absolutely continue that. We do provide a security piece at central count. We don't leave until central count is completed. We have contingency plans should there be a technological glitch. I'm with you, I like technology, but it can be a pain sometimes as well. It's helpful, but we certainly have redundancy in systems and process in place to get those results over to our partners at the county should there be some glitch. That's West Bend's plan, and I can tell you I have full faith and trust in my partners at the county and at our other municipalities that they have similar plans in place. And finally, you stole my line, but that's okay because it's our line. This gathering is what makes West Bend great. These questions are what makes this election process valuable from the standpoint that we don't take it for granted. So sometimes I was uncomfortable with your question. I'll be real honest with you, just because I have a sense of pride in West Bend and our level of respect. And then I reminded myself, that's why you were here tonight. So the biggest partners we have to keeping our elections safe from the police department standpoint is all of you and our great community and our great county residents as well. And when we know this, and you've heard me say it many times, see something, say something. If anyone has concerns, I'm begging you to contact your police department, grab an official, grab one of the inspectors, grab some of the observers, let them know what your concerns are. They all know there's never a burden in contacting the police department or any of our partners in law enforcement, and it will be addressed immediately. So I was short on my first answer. I was long on my last one because I am not used to sitting quiet that long. So thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. On to election inspectors, and by the way, we have 20 minutes to finish everything, so talk fast.
Well, the good news is I think a lot of this has been said already, answered in your questions that you asked. So thanks for coming up. You'll have another opportunity to ask questions in The municipal clerks on election day do provide support to all of our 8 polling locations. We have 8, as I've previously mentioned, in West Bend. If there are any questions, the chief inspectors know to call our city clerk. Our city clerk is in the central count, and she's in her office, and she's at the polling locations, and she's in conversation with Ashley, our county clerk, and throughout the day. Her team works really tirelessly to make sure that those polling places work as smooth as possible. So absolutely supporting. She serves as an information resource, as does Ashley. The election inspectors, they're in charge of the polling location. That's been said here before, asked in questions. They are absolutely in charge. They do the see something, say something all the time. I personally walked through as your city administrator here in West Bend, our polling locations several times, and I do see officers there, and I do see poll observers at some of our locations. Some of you in attendance I recognize. You're welcome to do that. Please come tomorrow for our test. That's absolutely a public duty that you have, and a resource that we want to provide to you. You're all welcome tomorrow morning again at 10 a.m. That was mentioned before. We process we don't process the absentee ballots. The election at each polling place. Just to be clear about that, we do it at central count. So that election inspector duty is a duty at central count, but not at each polling location. I think I get to keep going, right? Okay, to the next slide. The seals, the security seals are in place. Yep. And then secure ballots equipment. This is all again on election day. Our inspector statements, they sign a form, they report any incidents that came up earlier. If there are questions or concerns that come up, if a poll observer asks a question, that gets logged on an incident log throughout the day. Again, on election day, what the voter needs to do, the voter comes and states his name, shows the ID. We talked a lot about that this evening. I don't need to spend much time with that. I did mention Badger Books earlier. We have a couple of our polling locations that have the e-books or the Badger Books, soon to be at all of our polling locations for efficiency. Acceptable photo IDs. Kathy, if you're tracking with me, those are before you.
Yep.
And then the polling book, what the poll book looks like, either on paper copy or on the Badger Book system. Poll book. This is something that's new. This very facility in summer was used by the Wisconsin Elections Commission as one of the sites that they gained information from some of you as far as what the absentee ballot might, the envelope might look like. And so they went around the state. We were fortunate to be one of the places where they checked in with their voters, our voters, and came up with these 3 different forms. Envelopes. One of the envelopes is an SVD envelope. We currently have special voting deputies going to our assisted living places and assisting voters that might need some special help. That's one of the colors on the screen ahead of you. Another color is the military envelope to denote our folks that are serving our country and how they send their ballots back. And then the last one is the absentee envelope. And they're denoted by 3 different colors. That is a new change for 2024. Election observers, what they get to do, must do, and what they cannot do. Those are listed before you. I'm not going to read them to you, but they do check in with our inspector. They show their ID. They sign a log. They are respectful. They maintain some appropriate distance. What they cannot do, and those are all listed there for you as well. Can't cause a disruption. And they don't. I've witnessed observers, and they're very respectful of our poll workers in the process. On to election night. Where are we doing something? All right. We're moving right into election night. So election day has occurred. Now this is election night. Verify that all absentees are processed. It was mentioned that we get to hang out for as long as it takes. Our city clerk and our poll workers will stay at City Hall in 2020. So you might remember that we were there till 4 a.m. We were there till 4 a.m. because there were a lot of in-person absentee ballots and mailed absentee ballots to process through central count. We've made some process improvements in the city of West Bend since then. We've added some additional voting machines to our central count. And our process now, we're anticipating will not take us that long. Ashley appreciates that as well. The list here just really runs through what all goes on voting night. I'm not going to read them to you. You can all read. We'll make this presentation available, I assume, is something that can be done.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on
All right.
that. All right.
And then the last thing is the Municipal Board of Canvassers. Ours is the multiple polling location in the city of West Bend. There are some towns that have been mentioned. They would just have one polling location. We convene ours after Election Day. It's made up of 2 individuals plus our municipal clerk. They review all the documentation, and then we hustle the information over to Ashley at the county, which I think is probably coming up next under her chat.
So on election night, you all are very familiar with seeing the election results. It's just important to note that they are unofficial results on election night. Nothing has been certified by the County Board of Canvass or the state. But so we do receive our results via modem, and I have all of our municipal clerks contact my office. If you were to come in, which you are more than welcome to on election night, and watch that process, you'll see 4 or 5 of our phones ringing all at the same time just to verify that we did receive the election results. And then moving on from there, we post everything, and you'll see at times if you're checking our county website, we do incremental postings of the election results. So we will, we'll get our first batch of municipalities that have voted in. We'll post those on our county website, and then we'll just follow up with that until we're officially done receiving all of the results. And they have been combined into our election report under our election results on the Washington County website. We also do list, if there are any provisional ballots, you'll see a special notation under the election results. We post 2 different versions of our election results, by race and then also by ballot style or recording unit. We post that on the election results page, and then also include the amount of provisional ballots, whether it's 0 or 1 or more than that. We include that on our county website as well.
Okay, as mentioned, the county accumulates all of the totals, posts them as they do. As I mentioned, the state does not do any of that. They don't send it electronically. I had read something yesterday that some states take the memory stick to the county rather than do the totals at the municipality. I don't find that hard to believe, actually. But nothing goes to the state until the county clerk sends it to the state. So, Megan, do you want any fine point on that?
I think that's exactly right. So on election night, there's actually no statewide total. So our statutes don't have any type of, place where all the results go on election night. What our state statute says is that the county clerks, they actually get the results from their municipalities and then they post it to their websites. And so when you're seeing on the news on election night, you're seeing that ticker with the results. That's completely unofficial. Results aren't official until all the levels of canvass have happened, until the audits have happened as part of the election. And so just, something to remind everybody, when you're seeing those unofficial totals on the ticker on election night, there's a lot of really important work happening at the municipal and the county level to verify and double check those results before they become official.
We're going to skip that Q&A answer. We are now at post-election. This goes pretty fast at the city level. Secure delivery of elections amendments.
Yep, so the next day we do bring all the election information, the ballots, and the sticks that are all included over to the county. We deliver them to Ashley. Ashley and her team receives them, denotes everything at Washington County. Then our team gets to work on the data entry of voter participation and the registrations into WisVote. Make sure that all of those are ready for this election as far as tabulation. Reconcile all of the data entry. Our city clerk's team. You heard the results of the Washington County audit in 2022. 2 votes out of 74,000. That's a really impressive number, a really impressive clean audit, and a really impressive clean election. So I hope, if anything, all of you that came here today recognize that is the case in not only the city of West Bend, but throughout Washington County, that we take that very seriously, and we secure all the equipment, the supplies go back into the election room until they are needed again for the next election. Retain everything, and we respond to public requests if there are any. Obviously, we're in conversation with the county and with the chief if there were any reason to be that.
I miss the older days when the reporters were standing around the counter.
I do have to say, in Washington County, we still have at least 1 or 2 that come to my office, yes, for election results.
Yeah, the AP and all of those talking heads at the federal level, they're watching all of these county. They have people who watch all of the county websites, and they are Johnny on the spot. Voter participation. This is where the municipal clerk, they do the banking process. Are you familiar with that?
I can touch on that. So in any municipality that has a paper poll book, there is a very manual process, time-consuming process that happens after the election. The municipal clerk and or her deputy clerks, or his deputy clerks, they actually have to scan in the barcode and enter that voter information into the statewide system for those that have voted. With a paper poll book, it is a very manual process. That information then is shown on MyVote. So if you were to go onto MyVote, and we saw this in 2020, and it was a significant area of concern for voters on the day following Election Day in 2020. People were saying, well, it's not showing that I voted yesterday. And so the explanation with a paper poll book is it's just a very manual process that takes time. A positive of the Badger books, or the e-poll books, is that it is an upload, which happens much more efficiently for our municipal clerks and saves quite a bit of time, which allows voters, such as yourselves, to be able to go onto the MyVote website and verify that it does show you did vote on election day, much faster than it would have if you have a paper poll book. Oh, still me. So moving on to post-election County Board of Canvassers. I know I have touched on this already earlier in the evening, but our County Board of Canvassers, it's made up of an appointed Republican and an appointed Democrat to partake in this Board of Canvass, along with myself. The job of the Board of Canvassers at the county level is to take a look and review all of the races that are federal, state, or county level races, including state referendums or county referendums as well. We review all of the tapes that were printed by the machines on election night. We take the information that was modemed to the county clerk's office with the election results, and we compare the results throughout our Board of Canvass for every single reporting unit and municipality within Washington County. And then following that, we also take a look at the inspector's statement, ensuring that all of the election seals are listed. We're also reviewing the rejected absentees and ensuring that there are valid reasons as to why absentee ballots were rejected in that municipality, and then also verifying that there were no documented incidents on the inspector's statement that we needed to address at that time. After going through all of our municipalities and all of their election reports and the results, and I've mentioned this already multiple times, but we perform a voluntary audit in Washington County, and I believe there may be a few other counties that also participate in that process in Wisconsin, but there's not a lot of us. We have chosen since 2017 to perform that voluntary audit where we randomly select 2 reporting units during that meeting, and then we also select 2 random races as well. And so during that process, it is a legitimate hand count of those ballots to ensure that the election machines total the results correctly for those races. So we do that during our Board of Canvas prior to certification. We also, if there were to be any provisional ballots, would verify that the correct information was provided and that ballot can be counted as well. Following all of that during our Board of Canvas meeting, we then, as the Board of Canvas, certify our results, and we provide the certification to the state of Wisconsin. We do not, so municipal clerks do perform their own Board of Canvas for their local level races. It's also important to note that the school districts also perform their own municipal, or their school district Board of Canvas to confirm their results as well.
Thank you, and we'll let the state, Megan, finish up with, now the state gets involved in an additional canvas and certification process, along with how they randomly request audits of the systems.
Yeah, so there are 3 levels of post-election certification, or canvas as it's called. And the 3rd level, after the municipality convenes and certifies the results at the municipal level, then the county convenes and certifies the results at the county level, then they come to the state. And the state also has to conduct a canvas where we're going through at a more macro level to reconcile the data. So if a canvas comes to us and we see that there are more votes cast in a jurisdiction than they had registered voters, that can't be certified. That would then be sent back to the county or to the municipality. They'd have to reconvene and they'd have to re-examine where was that issue found, and then have another public meeting and certify the election at the local level, and then work its way back up through the chain. So every time there's a state level contest, it goes through 3 levels of public canvassing to double check, triple check those results. We also facilitate the post-election audits. So the post-election audits are required after every general election, and essentially the commission meets and they decide what are the criteria going to be for the audit. In 2022, they set out the criteria that at least 10% of voting equipment in the state would be audited after the election. And the audit is a hand count of the ballots in that reporting unit to ensure that the count matches the machine total. And that's done in public. And so after the November election, if West Bend or a nearby municipality is randomly selected after the election for that audit, you'd actually be able to go and witness that audit taking place as well. Once those results are submitted to the state, the commission again meets to look at all of the results of the audit, and if they identify some kind of issue. Usually they're human issues where there's some type of training that's required, and then the commission will put out additional training. But if there were some kind of error created because of the machines, the commission would have the ability at that time to revisit certification of that system. That hasn't happened, but if there were some type of issue attributed to voting equipment, the commission would have the ability to take remedial actions at that point.
I think you guys did really well. Even though we had a lot of questions, we have room for more. Just a few. Can you come around here so we can use the microphone? Okay.
Election something or voter fraud list?
Yeah, so the state's website for the Wisconsin Elections Commission, our website is elections.wi.gov. And I think the best way to navigate it is just to go right up to the search bar at the very top and type in, if you're looking for the voter fraud reports, you can type in voter fraud reports and it'll bring back the pages with all those historical reports after each election.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have 2. They're related. First, do election officials care about the authenticity of the votes? And if they do, which I'm sure they do, why do they only do a counting audit? Because I can hand you $10 in change, and it can be monopoly money, but it still is going to count out as $10. But if you tell me that it's monopoly money, then it's not valid.
So you're asking why they don't review and look at every single ballot before they,
The same 10%, the 10% would be much better if you did a validity check than if you just counted. If
and
you
I
counted the
understand
illegals.
your point. You're saying that that machine probably or could possibly have not counted the spots accurately. Is that what you're saying? And so for them,
What I'm saying is all of the illegals that get in on their driver's licenses that don't say not able to use as a voting document. And so the clerks aren't going to know that this person is illegal because nobody can ask them about their legal status. So then, what is the process? You want us to be confident in our election process, but these big things that we keep bringing, you say, oh, this is how we run our elections, and on paper it looks great, it looks wonderful, it looks fantastic, but you have all these illegals coming in, you have dead people coming in. I don't know how dead people get witnesses, but I think the majority is people that are not eligible to vote, and that is what needs to be addressed. If that were addressed in an effective fashion, everything else would disappear. So do election officials really care about the
they
authenticity?
do. That is a federal issue. That is got to be an enforcement by the federal government, and we can't expect our clerks to be able to do that, and I don't want to put that on their shoulders.
So we're gonna go back to the, no, we're gonna go back to the line, please, if you're gonna have order. Yep, please, thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Not so much a question, but more just an observance. First off, thank you to everyone who came out here tonight. Thank you to Keep Our Republic for hosting this. I would just say that it seems like a lot of the issues that people have concerns with tonight, the four people up here are, they're public servants, they're administrators, but none of them, well, except the county clerk, puts their name on a ballot. I think a lot of these issues that people have concerns with, and I think rightfully so, are our legislators. We need to talk with our Senator Dewey Strobel, our assembly members, and then also, I know this is Washington County, not a whole lot of love for Governor Evers, but I think, the legislature and the governor need to come to a compromise to address some of these issues that have been brought up tonight. And so I just hope we just don't yell at the people who administer the elections, but we also need to make sure that we hold the people in Madison accountable when we send them there. If they're not doing what we want them to, that's why we have elections coming up, which is when our new maps come into effect. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here and just appreciate this openness. And I'm a parent of 3 kids, so it's past my bedtime, but I definitely appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
I
Sheriff,
know.
are you a sheriff?
I am.
Have we met?
Yes, we used to date years ago. I don't know if you remember me. Up there in Chippewa Falls High School.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm Jefferson Davis.
Oh,
I
my
know. You
goodness.
just seen the Lord Jesus reincarnated. Yeah.
I personally invited you.
You did. Thank you. So, Senator, I just wanted to have one more quick question. So, Megan, earlier, I asked 2 questions. Do you agree with Governor Evers that the data from the DMV should be shared with you and should be shared with the clerks regarding the 260,000 non-U.S. citizens that have been given a driver's license just since January 1st of 2019? That doesn't include 2024 or anything past prior to that. And then the second part was that I asked you a question and you weren't able to answer it because so many things were being thrown at you, and we understand that. What are you doing from a cybersecurity standpoint that the FBI director promised is going to happen from Iran, Russia, and China, so that if our systems do go down, and we're promised that they're going to be, what's the backup plan? What's plan B? If you would answer both of those, please. And thank you again.
You're
And we'll
welcome.
see you in the next couple of weeks.
April 3rd.
Yeah, don't tell anyone.
Okay, we have a date.
So thank you for the questions and thank you for circling back on them. So about the DMV data and should it be shared with clerks and should it be shared with the commission to be able to act on that data from the DMV. I know that you said in your analysis that the commission structure might be a little different than how they view it, but I answer to the commission. And so the commission could certainly discuss something like that if it was brought to their attention about if that's something they wanted to support is, having that type of data. But I do think that that's something that would be the best candidate to be codified in legislation, right? To say that this is what is required to be shared with election officials, and this is what election officials are then required to do with that data, right? And so I think having that clarity in law would be the best place for it. That said, information can go to your municipal clerk. So if somebody has data that there's been some kind of wrongdoing in your jurisdiction or somebody has voted that should not have, that's certainly something that at any time you can bring to the attention of your local clerk. One of the problems that come up sometimes is that we get these very general, what are you doing about all this that's happening and people voting at the wrong address or whatever it might be. We as election officials, we can't look into it unless we have specific data. So I know in this case, we're talking about getting a data set from the DMV, which I do think is appropriate for our legislation. But in terms of, other cases or information you may have, you do have an avenue to bring that to your clerk's attention or to file it as, some type of complaint. There are administrative complaint processes to bring things in front of the commission if you allege some type of wrongdoing. In terms of cybersecurity perspectives, I appreciate you bringing up that discussion about some of the federal support. I feel so confident in our state support here in Wisconsin and our local support in terms of cybersecurity. We have really built some phenomenal relationships with our state law enforcement partners and local law enforcement partners to help us prepare for cybersecurity, concerns or threats as we head into this election year. And I think that's really where we're going to find that we're the strongest is when we're working with our state and our local partners on these topics that impact state and local government. So we work with our local election officials on a continual basis on cybersecurity preparations and about how they would report some type of cyber event, all the different steps that they take to mitigate some type of cyber event. And if I've learned anything over the last 4 years, it's that really putting our time in terms of developing those resources into working with our state level and our local level law enforcement on some of these has been the most effective thing I think that has come out of the last couple of years. We have really, really strong partnerships. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow morning with a bunch of our state and local law enforcement to talk about cybersecurity. So it's something we take very seriously, and we have changed a lot of our approaches over the last few years as we've better understood sort of the federal government's rule and their limitations, frankly, in being able to support some of the security efforts and have really worked towards fortifying the relationships with local and state law enforcement and cybersecurity partners.
Okay, next.
All right, thank you. So like many of you, after the 2020 election, I had some questions about what happens at polling sites, what happened in that election. So I decided to become a poll worker. And I'm not saying that for glory per se, but I'm saying that because I see a lot of people here who have questions. I encourage you to become a poll worker or a poll watcher. You will learn a ton about how these elections happen. They talked about how the modem doesn't go into the machine till after the tape prints. I know that firsthand because I've been the guy who's put that modem in there, so I've seen that happen. If you want to get involved in the administration of elections, in Wisconsin, elections are run in a neutral fashion but it's the two parties coming together to run that election. So you need to be appointed either by the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. If you're a Republican, Linda Gurath is here, you can talk to her. If you're a Democrat, their headquarters is across the street, you can look for them to be open. But I encourage you to get involved, be a poll worker, or be a poll watcher on election day. And show up at the polling site and just watch what's happening. Show up when they close and watch what's happening. Get involved, you're gonna learn a lot about what actually happens. All right, thank you.
And thank you so much. And just a forewarning, sign up, but there is a deadline for the parties to submit, and that's already passed. But you'll be on the list for next time.
We can do a supplemental list.
Oh, can you? Can we do a supplemental list? I'll be darned, we can do a supplemental list. And some municipalities are still looking for people for April. So there's a shortage of poll workers, and so if you want to know the process, working it firsthand is helpful.
So I have a question, and circle back on the absentee ballots and how they're tracked. I mean, we know that WisVote or MyVote tells the person that the absentee ballot's been sent and if it's been returned. Then you said something that kind of piqued my curiosity, is that it's actually scanned by the post office. What is the post office scanning an absentee ballot for?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. I probably didn't clarify that enough. So what we're talking about is not the ballots, it's the envelope. So the outside envelope.
Okay, so what do they scan?
Yeah, just like any mail. So like if you order a package and then they track to see did the package make it, to its destination in time, that's what they're doing. It's an intelligent mail barcode that just says, yep, the post office received the ballot and it's now made it to your clerk. Like it's gone back to your clerk.
So the clerk then knows that? Is that then tied into the MyVote?
So it's tied into the statewide voter registration database, WisVote, yes. So the clerk does indeed know that, yep. And so let's say they get some notifications that ballots should have been returned, but they don't actually have them in their possession. It would give them the ability then to follow up and say, what the heck, I didn't get all of these. So it allows for a lot of checks on the clerk's part for them to make sure that ballots didn't get lost in transition or didn't get lost in general, that should have made it to them.
Okay, so just so I understand, so it is scanned, the ballot, or not the ballot, the envelope is scanned by the post office, but the post office, that information is then put on through WisVote.
It's put through to your
It's
your
scanned, it's
clerk.
all electronic.
You're right. It is on MyVote too, because if you're a voter,
You wanna know.
you want to know your ballot
So-
made it back.
So
and
that system is all tied together?
Yep.
And you can find out if you didn't get your ballot, you can find out where it is, what happened to it. Back before we started that, I had a constituent who the husband got his ballot, she did not. I believe. When did we incorporate this barcode system?
So actually, this came out of 2020. So because
Yes.
in 2020 we went from a state that there weren't a lot of absentee ballots to a lot more people utilizing that option. And so at that time we said, well, this is no longer a pen and a stamp process. We need the clerks to have some tools to be able to identify if there's a problem.
And voters to have tools to find out where their ballot is, because he didn't get his, she got hers, and she ended up having to vote during COVID on election day, which she didn't really want to do. It's you again.
I know, I'm sorry. A couple quick questions. First of all, thank you for this. I did learn some things tonight, and that was actually very helpful, so I appreciate that.
Good.
One of the things I heard was there's a post-audit election done at the state level, and it's a random. I'm just curious, how is that random list of voting precincts or whatever completed? Who selects that random list?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the post-election audit happens, just to clarify, it does happen at the municipal level. What the state does is the 6-member commission, the statute says they get to prescribe what that audit looks like. So they meet and they say, what do we want this audit to look like? It used to be 2% of voting equipment was examined. The commission has upped that each year and it's now 10%. And then they also put together some criteria. They say we need at least one piece of equipment from each county. We need one type of each type of equipment that's out there audited. Then we have a random selection process. So you can actually watch it. It's a public process when that drawing happens. But essentially, what it boils down to is there's a list of municipalities, of reporting units, and they're each given a number, and then we have a couple of 10-sided dice that we roll to select which jurisdictions are picked.
Thank you for that. And then one other quick question, which is absentee ballot related. You mentioned that they're handled at the central count site or whatever. And I was just curious, I've heard two stories. One is that if an elector, person voting, has not completed the form correctly, then only the person voting or their witness can correct it per statute, state statute. Yet I've also heard that there is direction, maybe from you or from someplace, to the county clerks to say, don't worry, don't do it that way, you guys just correct it for the elector. I'm just curious, what is the process for this year?
Yeah, no, that's a great, thank you for asking that question. So there's a recent court decision that does make it a little more limited in terms of how corrections can be made to a ballot that's been returned. So if a ballot's been returned to the clerk and it's missing information, the clerk cannot add that information to the certificate envelope. There is another court decision, though, that said that that doesn't necessarily mean if there's missing information from, let's say, a witness address. So if there's a missing signature, let's say the voter didn't sign it or the witness didn't sign it, in those instances, those folks are going to have to come down to the clerk's office and correct that error, usually together. But let's say that the address just says 123 Main Street, WB, right? The most recent court decision says it's sort of within the clerk's discretion to decide, is that enough information that I could find that voter? I could ascertain witness's address if we needed to contact them. So there is a memorandum that the commission put out after those court decisions. It's sort of confusing because we got two different court decisions and both of them say different things. And so it's sort of finding where do those two court decisions overlap, and that's where the commission found, the memo that they then issued to clerks. And so it goes through a couple of the scenarios that you're talking about and says exactly what would happen in those. But adding information to a witness, adding information to a certificate envelope to the witness address or other fields is not something that is allowed.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know you want to get some stuff off your chest.